So the message today is a lot of us are born into generational curses. And if you relate to my kind of content and you relate to the kind of things that come out my mouth and you're interested and you feel like you are on some kind of similar wavelength to me, okay, there's a good chance you're a generational curse breaker in your family. So yeah, generational curse breakers, you know, so we're born into a cursed bloodline. The majority of people, unless your parents have turned to God, repented for the ways, healed the trauma, so they are not putting their trauma onto the future generations and they're inviting God into the equation, you will be born into a cursed bloodline, okay? And if you are a generational curse breaker, you're born with a certain kind of light to you, and the world will see it before you do, and that's why the world will try and dim your light or try and convince you you're not who God made you to be, you know, to make sure that you don't fulfill your purpose with the Lord. You know, there is no time in heaven. So before you're born, God knows who is going to be the generational curse breaker in that family. And a lot of the times you are the black sheep or the outcast. You know, a lot of the times you'll be abused by your parents mentally or physically. You know, mental abuse is no one speaks out about the kind of mental narcissistic abuse you will receive from your parents that shapes you, lads. You know, it shapes you. I'll speak out about this any day, lad. You know, I'll be a martyr, lad. I've not got beef with no one. But how can you not speak out against this? It's a very serious topic. So the generational curse breaker, it's their job to start a relationship with the Lord, get right with God, heal the trauma that's within them, heal the trauma that's within you. And a lot of the times, your trauma can come from family. You know, your parents might not be full-blown narcissists, but 100%, if you are a generational curse breaker, the spirit of narcissism is going to be flowing through your parents, mate. You know, and this isn't a topic you can discuss to your parents because they're just going to flip in. You have to forgive your parents and you have to kind of tap into the idea of, okay, but what's happened to them? Because if you look at your parents, you will see, okay, I can understand now that they've not received very good treatment from their parents and it's been passed down, you know, but it's up to us to break this curse, you know, and this isn't some fancy terminology, generational curse breaker. You know, a generational curse breaker is a spiritual thing, you know, it's spiritual, it's real, mate. Yeah, so you're born with a light that the world is going to try and dim. You know, there's going to be adults that are going to be threatened by your light from birth. So you can even have teachers putting it on you. You know, you can have grown adults staring out children because they're intimidated by the light that child possesses or the kind of confidence or potential. It's God at the end of the day. You've got children out there, mate, that are getting stared down by grown adults and teachers, right? The teachers can be acting all nicey, but they're giving the child the evil eye and intimidating the child because they're insecure every time they speak to that child. I'm cooking today, mate. I'm cooking today. Yeah, generational curse breakers start your relationship with God and turn it around because there are huge blessings for the generational curse breaker. You know, you're inviting God back into a bloodline that's gone against God, right? And the devil is going to do whatever he can to make sure you don't save your future generations. The devil is going to do anything he can to make sure your kids go through the same kind of treatment that you went through. Put your foot down. Be the curse breaker of your family. Start your relationship with God and you will reap the rewards. You know, there's rewards, lad. If you're out there looking for some kind of fantasy life, bro, the biggest, you know, forget all this fairy tale stuff. Mate, the best life you can live is one with God, with the love of God, for protection of your family and a purpose. Now, if you're a generational curse breaker, as humans, yeah, right, we're entitled to the blessings that God had for us originally. You know, so the world was never like this. We're born into a fallen world, mate. We're born into a war. You get me? You know, we're born into a world that's gone against God. This is what you need to understand. Oh, God, where are you because of this? You know what I mean? Oh, how can God be real because, you know, my Auntie Sheila died. I can't. Bro, we're not born into a perfect world. It was perfect and we've messed it up, right? So we've gone against God in ways where it's not going to carry on. You know, if you look in history, there's been time and time again where God has laid down the law, mate, and reset the world. You know, there's plenty of times where God has gone, nope, and caused a reset. And there's going to be a reset coming back soon, mate. So get right with God. You know, get right with God. Be the generational curse breaker. Don't put your kids through the same kind of stuff you went through as a child, mate. You know, what kind of tips can I give? right? So meditation's a big one. Now, Christians will say meditation is demonic, and it flipping can be, mate, because when you're meditating, right, and you're tapped in spiritually, you can go down some weird avenues, and you can invite in some really weird spirits. Okay, do you know what I mean? But I've got to where I'm up to today by meditating, but bringing God into the equation. So it will be a prayer / meditation. You know, I'll put my headphones on, I'll put some nice music on low, right, and I'll really, do some breath work and then pray. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day its daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the power and glory of the kingdom. Right, boom. Lord, forgive me of my sins. Mate, you speak to God about everything in this meditative state, with the lights off, with a candle on, with a little bit of music on, you know what I mean? All nicey and that, and you speak to God about everything. Okay, and you'll go back and think about it, speak to God about everything that's troubled you in this life, all the kind of things that you would be too embarrassed to speak about to anyone, the type of things you wouldn't speak to your best friend about, the type of things you wouldn't even tell a doctor, the type of things you wouldn't even tell a therapist. Speak to God about everything that's hurt you, mate. Really get into it, mate. Or you speak to God, right? You don't come to God all fancy, okay? You come to him and you tell him exactly what you want in this life. You tell him what you're struggling with. Oh God, flipping out, mate. You know what I mean? You start a relationship the exact same way you'll start a relationship with a therapist or flipping out anyone, lad. You start your relationship like that with God, mate, and it'll all unfold. If you are a generational curse breaker, you will have suffered to your family in some kind of way. You know what I mean? Your parents are most likely narcissists, or your parents can have the spirit of narcissism flowing through them, and this is such a weird experience to go through, mate, because God will reveal your trauma. All right. So what it is if you've got trauma, you'll have something stored within you, right, that has to be dealt with, but it was never dealt with when you was younger. All right. So I'm cooking today, lads. This is it, lad. This is it. So things might have happened to you when you was a child, when you was a teenager, or at any stage of your life, and it gets buried. You didn't deal with it when you had to deal with it, and it got suppressed. Okay, you can suppress trauma with drugs, hardcore video games, before you're, if you're too young to be on drugs or whatever, and you play RPGs, or, you're just locked into your video games, that can be a suppression. Food can be suppression. Rebellious activity can be suppression. Sleeping around can be suppression. There's so many things that can suppress your trauma because you're distracting yourself, and you're doing things to keep your brain running, but your trauma's there, lad. Okay, and as you are doing things to suppress your trauma, you don't know you're suppressing your trauma, but you are. And as you're doing all these kind of rebellious, sinful activities to suppress your trauma, mate, you're just adding in more trauma through the lifestyle that you're living. It's buried with drugs and Okay, so you're bubbling up at this point, and you've got that much trauma within you, mate. You can be anxious, and you're in a constant state of fight or flight. I never used to know what was wrong with me, okay, because I was always in this anxious state growing up. Like, not many people believe, because the way I am now, mate, I'm so confident now, but when I was a young teenager, mate, I was so anxious and I didn't understand it. I used to Google relentlessly every night, like, what is this? What am I going through here? Okay, and it's weird because people will say anxiety is fear. I know, but you know what I mean? I was like, fear? Well, you know what I mean? I'm not scared of anything. I was in a constant state of fight or flight due to the actions of my parents. No, shots fired. I've got no beef with my parents. I love my parents, but what am I going to do? Not speak up about this? I cared about one thing and one thing only, and that's people that have gone through the same things as me, mate. Who are on... Oh, mate. Bro, this is real life, mate. I can't even get my words out, mate. Oh, lad. Come on, lad, pull it together, bro. What is going on? I don't hear many priests or Christians just say it exactly how it is. And I'm going to tell you now, yeah, God is real. I'm telling you, he's real. Okay, lads. No, I didn't just, I didn't turn to God to be a better person, mate. I had no choice, lads. I had no choice, mate. Oh, I had no choice, yeah. I had no choice. If you think I'm on this path because I'm trying to be a better person, trying to live a life, lad, there was no other way than God. And thank God, God found me. Because if I would have died in the state, and I should have died hundreds. If I would have died in that state, mate, I'd be going to hell, lad. Right? And the demons that attack me, the demons that creep into, bro, this is high level stuff I'm speaking about here, yeah. And if you relate to this in some kind of way, mate, then hallelujah, mate. You know what I mean? Thank God I've got someone that understands. The demons that attack us, mate, in the spiritual realm, if you've ever been attacked in your sleep through sleep paralysis, if you've ever been attacked demonically, mate, these demons want to tear you apart, lad. These demons will do anything to keep you away from God. These demons are out here trying to rape you, lad. Every kind of action, every kind of horrendous thing that happens in this world, okay, is fueled by the demonic, lad. Right? These things hate us. Now imagine going to their realm, It takes sin and a certain kind of low vibration for these demons to be able to operate in this world, That's why demonic rituals take place and sacrifices, because when the child's been abused and killed and that, the frequency is so low, the demons are able to pass through and pass into vessels. So a lot of people you see walking around this earth now, they're not even them, lads. They're possessed to the point where the demonic thoughts are their thoughts, the demonic actions are their actions. That's why such horrendous things are happening, lads. It's because the vibration is that low, these demons are able to pass through, mate. You've got these people, these celebrities in music concerts. What you're looking at is a vessel that's got a legion of demons within them, because these demons want to be famous, these demons want to beat God. So if you're trying to get, if you're a demon, where are you going to get the most recognition? On stage, singing, teenage girls, where are they going to go? Where they're going to feel like gods, and it's on stage, lad. Okay, so be aware, lads. Be aware what your kids are listening to. Be aware what your children are listening to, mate. Because of the lyrics of these songs, drill music or whatever, mate. Even flipping girly pop songs have got a demonic undercurrent in, some kind of agenda to push onto the kids. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Generational curse breakers, it's your job to break the curses in your generational bloodline, okay, to turn back to God, to invite God back into the situation, and there's blessings to be had, lad. And you've got to heal, and you've got to understand that, you know what I mean, and you need to be able to walk away from everybody. Mate, you need to be able to leave friendships, the lads out there that are making money. If you're making money with someone, if you and your best mate are making really good money together, you know what I mean, you need to be able to walk away from that. For God, lad. You need to be able to look at someone you love and turn your back on him, right? You need to be able to walk away from your family, not because you don't forgive them, okay? You forgive them, but a lot of the times, mate, even if you do forgive your family and you are a generational curse breaker, and you go back to your family for Christmas or whatever, mate, a lot of the times it's a relationship held together with a piece of duct tape, lads. It's not for you a lot of the times, and you've got to be able to turn your back, and you've got to be able to have everyone in this world call you rotten for walking away, and starting smear campaigns and saying here's the issue, and you've got to be able to deal with that and not fight your corner, mate, and just walk and do one, lads. I'm not trying to out anyone. I don't want to be coming on here but it's the flipping truth, mate.